My name is Hannah Mercer. I am 36 years old, a commercial kitchen operations consultant in Nashville, Tennessee, and at 7:10 on a Saturday night, I walked into the grand opening of Mercer Table and saw my younger brother cutting a red ribbon in front of a restaurant built from my recipes, my vendor accounts, and my credit. The dining room smelled like hot cornbread, smoked chicken, brown butter, and fresh paint that had not fully dried behind the bar. Food bloggers stood near the front window with phones raised. Two vendor reps leaned against the wall, smiling like this opening meant future money. My mother, Linda, stood beside the ribbon wearing pearls and the proud face she only used for Ryan. My father, Frank, hovered near the hostess stand with his hands in his pockets, already pretending he did not know where the money had come from. Ryan wore a white chef coat with his name embroidered over the heart. Chef owner, sole founder, family legacy. Those words were printed on the black welcome board beside the door. My name was nowhere. Not on the founder wall, not in the menu credits, not in the press packet, not even on the opening night thank you card, though every sauce on that menu came from the worn red recipe book my grandmother Ruth left to me when she died. I had that book in my tote, wrapped in a cotton towel because the spine was cracked and the pages still smelled faintly like flour, smoke, and her kitchen. Inside it were her handwritten notes, my margin changes, sauce stains, supplier codes, costing numbers, and one hidden page where I had written the original restaurant concept name 8 years earlier. Then my mother lifted a champagne glass in front of the room and said, "Hannah only cooked at home. Ryan was the one brave enough to make it real." People laughed softly because they thought it was family teasing. Ryan grinned. His wife Elise raised her phone higher for the live stream. I looked at the lease folder Marcus Reed, the landlord's property manager, had accidentally emailed me that morning, and I did not laugh back. Before I tell you what happened when Marcus asked who signed the lease guarantee and my brother dropped the ribbon knife, tell me this first. What time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I want to know how far this story travels before my family understands that invisible hands still leave fingerprints. Ryan had always been the child my parents described with appetite words. Hungry, passionate, gifted, born for something bigger. I was described with utility words. Reliable, practical, organized, helpful. Ryan could burn a tray of biscuits, and my mother would say he had creative fire. I could feed 20 relatives from an empty fridge, and she would say, "That is what you do when family comes over." My father loved saying Ryan had the Mercer taste. He said it whenever Ryan added too much salt to gumbo or called himself a chef after watching 3 cooking videos. Grandma Ruth never said that. She was the one who taught me how to cook low and slow, how to write down what changed, how to taste a sauce before trusting a timer, and how to never let a man take credit for a woman's stove just because he carried the plate to the table. "A meal made by invisible hands still feeds the room," she told me when I was 16, after Ryan got praised for Sunday dinner because he had sprinkled parsley on the chicken I braised for 4 hours. I laughed then. Grandma did not. She tapped the red recipe book with one wooden spoon and said, "Laugh if you want, baby, but write your name where it belongs." I wrote my name on the inside cover that night in blue ink, Hannah Mercer. Not because I imagined my family would steal from me, because Grandma knew they already were. The stealing began as praise. At 22, Ryan hosted a backyard barbecue and asked me to help a little because he wanted to impress a girlfriend. I made the peach glaze, fixed the dry rub, saved the pork shoulder, and packed the sides in foil pans. At dinner, he told everyone he had been working on his own Southern menu concept. My mother clapped. I was washing dishes. At 26, he tried a catering pop-up with a friend and forgot to price labor, delivery, and disposable trays. I rebuilt the menu cost sheet at midnight so he would not lose money on every plate. He called me controlling when I told him $14 was too low. The next day, he told his followers he believed in food from the heart, not spreadsheets. His friend paid me late with cash from a cigar box. At 30, Ryan got hired as kitchen manager at a brewery and quit after 3 weeks because the owner expected him to inventory properly. Mom said he was too talented for small minds. When I spent 6 months consulting for a restaurant group on supplier compliance and food safety systems, she asked why I never took a real kitchen risk like my brother. Ryan was allowed to fail as proof of ambition. I was expected to prevent failure without being seen. The restaurant idea should have been mine because it was mine first. 8 years before Mercer Table opened, I had sketched a concept called Ruth's Table in the back of Grandma's recipe book. Small dining room, rotating supper menu, cornmeal-crusted catfish on Fridays, her skillet greens with smoked turkey, my hot honey biscuits. A Sunday chicken plate with lemon pepper gravy she never wrote down because she said some recipes lived in the wrist. I did not open it then because I was building my consulting career, learning how restaurants actually survive after opening night photos stop mattering. I studied vendor contracts, food cost percentages, labor scheduling, health department binders, allergen sheets, supplier credit, liquor license timing, walk-in cooler logs, and all the boring things that keep a kitchen from becoming a pretty bankruptcy. My family called that fear. I called it knowing what fire does when nobody checks the gas line. Ryan called me 2 years later and said he wanted to open a restaurant for Grandma. That phrase did what he knew it would. It put his hand on the one door in me that never locked properly. At first, I helped because I wanted the recipes handled right. Ryan had charm. Elise had social media polish. My parents had hometown nostalgia. I had the actual system. I found the original supplier for stone-ground cornmeal. I negotiated produce delivery because the first vendor wanted cash on delivery, and Ryan had already bounced one check with them from his catering days. I created the menu pricing. I built the allergen sheet. I wrote the prep lists. I drafted the kitchen opening checklist. I trained his lead line cook on holding temperatures because Ryan thought hot enough was a food safety category. I corrected the health inspection binder 3 days before the pre-opening walkthrough because Ryan's version had blank sanitizer logs and no shellfish cross-contact notes. I even paid the first supplier deposit, $4,600, because Ryan said the restaurant account was waiting on a bank transfer. My mother called it faith in family. The invoice called it my card. The first big warning came with the lease. The building was a renovated brick storefront in East Nashville, 2 blocks from a boutique hotel and close enough to music venues that weekend foot traffic could save a mediocre month. The landlord required a guarantor because Ryan's credit was weak after failed catering debts and 2 late equipment payments. Ryan told me he just needed help explaining the lease terms. I read the draft and told him not to sign anything until the guarantor section was clarified. He nodded like a child, promising not to touch the stove. A week later, he said the landlord had accepted a smaller security package because Elise's online campaign showed brand momentum. I asked to see the revised lease. He said, "Hannah, do you want me to open this place or not?" My father called that night and said Ryan was under pressure. My mother said Grandma would want unity. Elise sent me a mock-up of the menu cover with Grandma Ruth's name in tiny letters and Ryan's in large ones. I should have stopped then. But people raised to be useful often mistake warning signs for invitations to work harder. For the next 3 months, my labor became invisible in layers. Elise filmed herself flipping through the red recipe book I had loaned Ryan for one weekend, saying, "Family recipes are the soul of Mercer Table." She cropped out my handwriting. Ryan posted a video tasting the hot honey biscuit and saying the recipe came to him after dreaming about Grandma. It came to him from page 43, where my note said add cayenne after butter foams, not before. My mother told church friends Ryan had inherited Ruth's kitchen spirit. My father told me I should be proud to help from the background, because some people were builders and some people were faces. I asked Ryan when we were finalizing the operating agreement. He said after opening week. I asked when supplier reimbursements were coming. He said after first revenue. I asked why the menu development file had my name removed. He said Elise wanted clean branding. Clean branding meant a woman's work without fingerprints. The accidental proof arrived opening morning at 9:12. I was at my kitchen table reviewing a supplier audit for another client when an email from Marcus Reed landed in my inbox. Subject line: Guarantor Welcome Packet Mercer Table Lease. I thought it was a mistake until I opened the attachment and saw my own name listed as lease cosigner and financial guarantor for the restaurant property. Hannah Mercer, same address, same last 4 digits of an old business line I had used on vendor inquiries. Under electronic signature was a messy version of my name that looked copied from an old consulting proposal. My heart did something strange. It did not race, it went still. The packet said I was financially responsible for lease defaults, damages, and certain vendor obligations tied to the property opening phase. I called Marcus immediately. He sounded confused. Ryan said you were the silent family backer, he said. We sent confirmation to the guarantor email on file. This is the first time I am seeing it, I said. Marcus went quiet in the way professionals go quiet when a hallway turns into a cliff. I asked him to preserve the submission metadata. He said the electronic signature had been uploaded from Ryan's office computer during the final lease package. That sentence changed the whole night before the doors even opened. I did not call Ryan. I did not call Mom. I did what my work had taught me to do. I printed the guarantor packet. I printed the supplier account applications with my name listed as financial reference. I pulled invoices for the first supplier deposit, the produce vendor, the rush menu printing, the safety binder tabs, and the allergen labels. I copied the original recipe book pages with Grandma's handwriting and my cost calculations in the margins. I found the hidden page where I had written Ruth's Table, Family Supper Concept, Nashville, long before Ryan ever called himself chef owner. Then I wrapped the recipe book and placed it in my tote with the lease folder. Evidence does not need anger to become heavy. It only needs the right room. At 6:40, before the ribbon cutting, Elise met me near the hostess stand with a cream card and a soft, camera-ready smile. We are having family sign a blessing for the opening, she said. Her phone was already angled toward me. I took the card. The top page said, "We bless Mercer Table as a shared family legacy." Under it, folded once, was an indemnity agreement confirming I acknowledged myself as a family backer and guarantor for opening obligations. The signature line was highlighted. People who forge once often return with a highlighter. I looked at Elise. This is not a blessing card. Her smile hardened. It is just to keep the paperwork aligned. With what lie? Ryan appeared behind her in his chef coat, holding the ribbon knife. Can you not do this tonight? Do what? Make everything about documents. I looked at the knife in his hand, the cameras near the ribbon, the red book displayed in a glass case by the host stand, like a museum item from a family that had agreed to be robbed. You made it about documents when you put my name on the lease. Ryan's face changed for half a second. Then my mother stepped in. Hannah, your brother is about to have the most important night of his life. I said, then he should not have built it on a forged signature. My father said my name like a warning. Elise lowered her phone. That was the first small victory. The performance had lost one camera. The grand opening began anyway, because people with guests in the room will continue a lie until the ceiling caves in. Ryan stepped to the ribbon. My mother cried before he said a word. My father lifted his glass. Elise told the live stream that Mercer Table was a dream born from generations of love. Then Ryan raised the ribbon knife and said, "Grandma Ruth always believed I would do something with her recipes." I almost laughed. Grandma Ruth once made Ryan peel 20 pounds of potatoes because he said chopping was women's work. He dropped the knife twice and complained for an hour. But the room did not know that. The room saw a handsome chef owner, a proud mother, a family recipe book, and a crowd ready to eat nostalgia off white plates. Then Mom gave her quote about me only cooking at home. The ribbon cut. Applause filled the room. Ryan kissed the air near Grandma's photo, and I felt something inside me go completely calm. Food went out fast at first. Hot honey biscuits, smoked chicken, catfish bites, deviled eggs with pickled mustard seed. I knew every plate because I had costed every ounce. A blogger near the bar took one bite of the greens and said they tasted like someone's grandmother had a secret. She was right. The secret was that the grandmother had trusted the wrong family to protect the woman who learned them. A vendor rep from Gulf Coast Seafood waved at me from a corner. He looked surprised to see me in the dining room instead of the kitchen. "You running the back tonight?" he asked. "Apparently I only cooked at home," I said. He frowned because he knew better. He had spent 2 hours on the phone with me confirming shellfish handling and delivery windows. Witnesses often do not know they are witnesses until the lie walks past them wearing a chef coat. The first pressure crack came at 7:38. A server carried out the wrong sauce for the catfish because Ryan had changed the plating board without updating the allergen sheet. The lead line cook, Tasha, found me near the kitchen pass with panic in her eyes. "Chef said use the pecan remoulade on both fish specials," she whispered, "but the private dining table has a nut allergy." I moved before thinking because, child or adult, guest safety does not wait for credit. I stepped into the kitchen, pulled the corrected allergen sheet from the binder I had made, and stopped the plates before they left. Ryan saw me and snapped, "Get out of my kitchen." Tasha froze. I held up the allergen sheet. "Then stop trying to send tree nuts to table 12. 2 cooks looked at Ryan. He looked at the ticket, then away. The plate went back. Nobody thanked me. That was fine. Safety is not a favor. But Marcus Reed had followed the noise to the kitchen doorway. He saw the binder in my hand and the lease folder under my arm. "Miss Mercer," he said carefully, "we need to talk before the landlord walk-through." Ryan turned pale under the heat lamps. That was when the night changed direction. Marcus asked for a quiet corner. Ryan tried to steer us toward the storage hallway. I said no. We stayed near the kitchen pass, close enough that vendor reps, bloggers, and staff could see, but not close enough to drag guests into the first sentence. My mother rushed over anyway because she could smell control slipping. Marcus opened his tablet. "I need to verify guarantor authorization on the lease." Ryan laughed too loudly. "We handled that weeks ago." Marcus did not laugh. "The guarantor says she did not authorize it." My mother said, "This is a family misunderstanding." I opened the lease folder. Forgery is not a misunderstanding. A food blogger lowered her phone. The Gulf Coast rep stepped closer. My father put his glass down. Ryan still held the ribbon knife, the one he had not set down after the photos. His fingers tightened around it. Marcus looked at the screen. The electronic signature was submitted from the office computer associated with Ryan Mercer's account. Ryan said, "Hannah knew she was backing us." I placed the guarantor packet on the stainless counter. Then why was the welcome packet sent to me by mistake this morning? Marcus turned the tablet slightly so Ryan could see the timestamp. because her name was listed as financially responsible. The kitchen noise thinned. One cook stopped wiping a plate. Elise appeared at the pass, phone in hand, but did not record. People only love transparency when it flatters them. My mother moved in first. Hannah, do not humiliate him over paperwork. I looked at the red recipe book displayed near the hostess stand. You put my name on debt. She said, successful people give back. Not through forged leases. Ryan tried the old line. You are jealous because you never had the guts to open a place. That was the lie I had been waiting for. I took the red recipe book from my tote and opened it on the counter. The spine cracked softly, and for 1 second, I heard Grandma's spoon tapping ceramic. I turned to the hidden concept page. Ruth's Table. My handwriting. Date. Menu structure. Supplier notes. Then I turned to the hot honey biscuit page. Grandma's base recipe, my margin changes, costing numbers, supplier code. Then the greens. Then the catfish dredge. Then the opening checklist I had tucked behind the back cover the week Ryan claimed he was almost ready. These are not your childhood inspirations, I said. They are my working files. Ryan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mother said, recipes belong to family. I said, then why did only one person do the math? The Gulf Coast rep spoke from behind Marcus. Hannah set up our account. The produce vendor rep added, she negotiated terms with us too. That was the first public proof slap, and it did not come from me alone. The invisible hands had names in other people's inboxes. Ryan finally set the knife down, not gently. It hit the counter and made 2 servers flinch. Marcus looked at him. Who submitted the guarantor signature? Ryan said, Elise handled some admin. Elise's face dropped. The golden child had found a woman to push in front of the flame. She stepped forward and said, Ryan told me Hannah agreed. I believed that she believed enough to type what he needed. That did not make it clean. Marcus asked, did Hannah sign the indemnity tonight? I held up the folded paper Elise had handed me. She tried. The second proof slap landed softer, but it spread wider. A blogger near the bar whispered, this is live? Another answered, no, she stopped filming. My mother said, you are destroying your brother's dream. No, I said, I am removing my credit from it. My father finally spoke. Hannah, please, we can fix this tomorrow. I turned to him. You knew. He looked down. That was his answer. Enablers always look at the floor like truth might be hiding there. The landlord's full walkthrough was supposed to be a victory lap. It became a table of records. Marcus moved us into the small, private dining room because the kitchen had stopped functioning under the weight of everyone pretending to plate normally. The room had a round table, 6 chairs, a wall of framed family photos, and the red recipe book lying in front of me like a witness with sauce stains. Marcus called the landlord on speaker. 2 vendor reps stayed because their credit accounts were tied to the opening. Tasha stood by the door because she had seen the allergen near miss. My mother tried to make her leave. Tasha said, I work here. I want to know if the systems are real. That was another shift. Staff had begun separating the restaurant from Ryan's performance. Marcus reviewed the lease guarantee. No identity verification call. No separate email confirmation from me. Signature uploaded from Ryan's account. My old consulting proposal used as a source image. Supplier credit applications listing me as family operations partner. Vendor terms extended based on my credit and professional reputation. $64,000 in opening week supplier credit tied partly to my name. I listened to the numbers stack up and felt no surprise, just clarity. My family had not wanted my dream. They had wanted my clean record. Ryan tried to save himself with charm. He told Marcus the restaurant was family-built, that Hannah was always part of the concept, that opening week was stressful, that nobody intended fraud. Marcus asked, "Did she agree to be financially responsible?" Ryan said, "She knew we needed her." "That was not my question," Marcus said. The room went still. I loved simple questions. They give lies less furniture to hide behind. Ryan looked at me then, not as a sister, not as a cook, not even as the woman who saved his kitchen from a nut allergy 10 minutes earlier. He looked at me like a locked cash register. "Hannah, tell them." "Tell them what?" "That you wanted this for Grandma." I opened the recipe book to the inside cover, where Grandma Ruth had made me sign my name. Grandma wanted me to write my name where it belonged. My mother whispered, "She would be ashamed." I said, "Of the forgery, yes." The landlord on speaker said the guarantee would be frozen pending investigation. Vendor credit extensions tied to my name would be suspended until authorization was verified. The lease itself would be reviewed for misrepresentation. The health inspection follow-up in 72 hours would require the binder to be verified under the actual responsible operator. Ryan's face went slack. The restaurant did not collapse in one dramatic crash. It began losing supports one beam at a time. Elise cried first, not loud, not theatrical, just a hand over her mouth as she looked from Ryan to the indemnity paper to the phone where her launch campaign had been scheduled in perfect little squares. "You told me she agreed," she said. Ryan snapped, "Not now." Not now had always been my family's favorite time for truth. My mother tried to comfort Ryan, not Elise. My father rubbed his forehead. Tasha picked up the food safety binder and placed it in front of Marcus. "Hannah trained me on this," she said. "Ryan told me to just follow it if he got busy." Marcus asked Ryan who wrote it. Ryan said, "We all contributed." Tasha said, "No, she did." Third proof slap. This one came from the employee who had to keep the guests safe after the ribbon photos ended. Ryan's chef-owner image had survived stolen recipes, copied margins, and fake origin stories. It could not survive the people who knew how the kitchen actually worked. Outside the private room, the opening kept limping. Guests ate, whispered, checked their phones, and pretended not to notice the founder's family disappearing into a closed-door meeting. A reservation host came in twice asking whether they should seat the second wave. Ryan said yes both times because appearances were oxygen to him. Marcus said supplier credit was paused and certain deliveries scheduled for Monday might not arrive unless new payment terms were established. Ryan said he would handle it. Elise looked at him like she had just met him. The seafood rep said he could not release the weekend extension without verified credit or payment in advance. The produce rep said the same. Ryan turned to me. There it was again, the reflex. When the room became expensive, the invisible woman reappeared. "Hannah," he said, softer now, "we can work this out." "No. It is Grandma's legacy." "Then stop using her as a shield. You would let the restaurant fail?" I looked at the recipe book, the lease folder, the binder, the vendor reps, the woman by the door who knew the allergen chart better than the chef owner did. I am letting it operate without my stolen name. My mother called me cruel. Marcus closed his tablet. Cruelty is not the issue. Authorization is. Practical people can sound cold because they are busy being useful. The public collapse happened when Ryan tried to return to the dining room as if nothing had changed. He walked out with the chef's smile back on his face, but the room no longer belonged to him in the same way. A blogger asked whether Hannah Mercer was the recipe developer. Ryan said, "My sister helped with some home cooking." I stepped out of the private room holding the red book. Home cooking built the menu. The blogger turned her camera toward me. I did not perform for it. I opened to the hot honey biscuit page and held it beside the printed menu. Same dish, same margin note, same supplier code. The Gulf Coast rep, still in the doorway, said, "She built the costing sheets too." A guest at the bar said, "Then why is Ryan listed as sole founder?" Nobody answered. My mother started toward me. "Do not make a scene." "The scene is already plated." That line ended the room. People stopped pretending they were only there for dinner. The chef knife lay back on the kitchen counter, forgotten. Ryan stood under his own founder wall, with no words left that did not cost him more. A photographer lowered his camera. Elise sat down at the hostess stand and deleted something from her phone. My father moved away from the welcome board. The wall said, "Family Legacy." The room had learned to read family liability. By 10, I left through the back door because the front was full of people waiting to see whether I would cry. I did not cry until I was in my car behind the restaurant, parked beside the grease bins, with the red recipe book on the passenger seat and the lease folder on my lap. Not because I wanted the restaurant to fail. That would have been simpler. I cried because Grandma Ruth's food had finally reached the room and my family had tried to make me a ghost at my own table. My phone lit up before I started the engine. Ryan called 6 times, Elise twice, Mom 11 times, Dad once. Then texts. "You went too far. You embarrassed the family. Grandma would never forgive you. Ryan might lose everything. Vendors are asking questions. Marcus is overreacting. Please come back inside." I answered none. At 10:43, Ryan texted, "If you love this family, you will fix this before Monday." I looked at the red book and replied with one sentence. "Invisible hands still leave fingerprints." Then I drove home. The next morning, process took over. Marcus sent a formal notice that the lease guarantee was under review, and my name would not be treated as valid unless I verified authorization in person, which I did not. Vendor credit accounts linked to my name were suspended. Gulf Coast Seafood required payment up front. The produce vendor reduced delivery to cash terms. The linen company paused service because Elise had used my consulting email as a reference. The landlord requested explanation from Ryan for the electronic signature submission. The health department liaison asked for the responsible operator tied to the safety binder. Ryan had to admit I had written it. The follow-up inspection still happened 72 hours later, and without me there to translate the binder into practice, the kitchen stumbled. Not catastrophically. Real life is not a movie. But enough. Missing cooling log, incorrect date on sanitizer test strips, allergen sheet not posted at one station. Correctable issues, embarrassing issues, issues I had warned them about. Ryan called me from the alley behind his own restaurant and said, "Just tell me where the backup logs are." I said, "Ask the chef owner." He hung up. My mother moved to public shame by Tuesday. She posted a photo of Grandma Ruth holding a pie with a caption about jealousy destroying what love built. I took a screenshot, then posted nothing. By noon, a former catering client commented, "Wasn't Hannah the one who handled Ryan's menus back then?" Someone else wrote, "I worked the pop-up, Hannah did the costing." Elise deleted the post from the restaurant page, but not before half the Nashville food circle saw it. Deletion is not disappearance. Ryan's first blogger review went live that week. The food was praised. The story was questioned. One line said, Mercer Table's recipes may have deeper roots than its branding admits. That sentence did more damage than a bad review. Food can survive criticism. Founders often cannot survive doubt about origin. My father came to my house the following Sunday. He stood on my porch with a paper bag from the restaurant, as if biscuits could substitute for accountability. I did not invite him in. He looked smaller outside my door than he had inside rooms where he could hide behind Mom. "Your brother is drowning," he said. "He opened a restaurant." "You know what I mean." "No, you mean he needs the person he erased." Dad looked at the bag. "Your mother thought if Ryan let it, the family would rally." "The family rallied around my credit." He sighed. "You were always better with the details." There it was again, the softest version of theft. I said, "Details are where the money, safety, and signatures live." He nodded like he finally understood, but understanding after exposure is not the same as protection before harm. I asked him when he knew my name was on the lease. He said, "I did not know for sure." "That means you suspected." He had no answer. I closed the door with the biscuits still in his hand. They had used food to get through to me my whole life. That day, hunger was cleaner than guilt. Elise contacted me 2 weeks later without Ryan copied. Her message was shorter than I expected. "I am not asking you to forgive us. I need to know what exactly is under your name, because Mia heard Ryan say you were trying to take the restaurant from us." Mia was their 10-year-old daughter, a serious child who loved Grandma's recipe book because she said the handwriting looked like spells. I hated that she was close to the damage. I replied once with a list of what had been used without consent: lease guarantee, vendor references, supplier credit, recipes, safety binder, menu costing. Then I added, "Do not tell Mia this is her fault or mine. Adults made the choices." Elise responded, "I know." It was the first honest sentence I had seen from that house in weeks. Later, Mia mailed me a drawing of a red book on a table with steam coming out of it. Under it, she wrote, "Grandma food." I put it on my fridge. Children should inherit recipes, not lies. The consequences settled into a shape by the end of the first month. Mercer Table stayed open, but smaller than the opening promised. Ryan had to bring in a real operations manager because the landlord required clearer accountability after the lease issue. Vendor credit remained limited until new terms were established without my name. The restaurant dropped 3 menu items because they were too expensive without my supplier pricing. The hot honey biscuits stayed, but Elise added a small line to the menu after I pushed through my attorney. Adapted from Ruth Mercer's family recipe archive, maintained by Hannah Mercer. It was not perfect. It was not enough. It was a fingerprint returned to the room. Ryan's chef-owner image cracked, not shattered. Men like him rarely lose everything at once. But the food bloggers stopped calling him self-made. The vendors stopped treating him like the only Mercer who mattered. My mother told relatives I had forced him to change the menu out of spite. I let her. Some lies become too small to chase. As for me, I took the part of my life they had tried to steal and built something cleaner from it. I launched Mercer Kitchen Systems, an independent consulting studio for small restaurants, home cooks, and family food businesses trying to open without destroying the people behind the recipes. My first workshop was called Protect the Table. We covered recipe ownership, vendor accounts, food safety binders, lease guarantees, electronic signatures, supplier credit, menu costing, and why family pressure is not a business structure. I placed Grandma Ruth's red recipe book at the front of the room in a clear case, not like Ryan had done, not as a prop, but as a source with a name. Beside it, I placed a blank guarantor form with a red stamp that said, "Do not sign without review." 12 women came to the first session, 3 brought recipe notebooks. 1 brought a sauce formula her brother wanted to borrow. Another brought a lease her cousin had asked her to co-sign for a food truck. We went through every page. Grandma would have loved that. Not because it was fancy, because no one left without writing their name where it belonged. I still cook her greens on Sundays. I still make the hot honey biscuits, though now I write down every batch change like she taught me. The red recipe book lives in a fireproof box when I am not using it. Inside the back cover, I added copies of the lease packet, Marcus's email, the supplier records, the menu correction, and Mia's drawing. The book used to feel like proof that my family erased me. Now it feels like proof that erasure failed. Ryan and I barely speak. When we do, it is through email, and only about recipe usage. My mother calls that cold. I call it measured. My father sends holiday texts with pictures from Mercer Table, always careful to crop the menu credits small but visible. Elise sends Mia's drawings sometimes. I answer those because children should not lose every bridge adults damage. I do not wish Ryan's restaurant dead. That surprises people. They think revenge means wanting the building empty, the ovens cold, the chairs stacked upside down. I do not. Grandma Ruth's food deserves better than my brother's ego. Staff deserve paychecks. Guests deserve safe plates. Mia deserves a family story that has at least one adult telling the truth. But I also do not rescue him anymore. If a supplier wants payment, he pays. If the health department asks questions, he answers. If the menu costs break, he fixes them or hires someone who can. I spent years believing love meant making sure no one at the table went hungry, even if they never noticed who cooked. Now I know love without accountability just feeds entitlement. My family tried to turn my recipes and my credit into Ryan's dream, while calling me just the home cook. They forgot the home cook had the book, the receipts, the vendor files, and the signature record. They forgot invisible hands still leave fingerprints. They forgot that a table built on stolen labor will wobble the second the person holding it steady lets go. So tell me, if your family used your work, your name, and your credit to build someone else's dream, would you keep quiet because the food tasted good? And if the landlord asked who signed the lease, would you protect the golden child? Or would you open the red book and let the whole room see whose hands built the table?